Good morning. Good morning, KB, Hidden, Mags, I hope you're doing incredibly well. Good morning to everybody on Binance Square. Testing 1, 2, 3. Everything seems to be fine. Everything seems to be good apart from my head. My head is not good today. Right then. 2 seconds. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Crypto Warehouse, 12th of January, 2026. And we've got a lot to get through. And, of course, we were thrown a curveball last night. If you don't know what I'm talking about, the video put out by Chairman Powell is going to be our opening act. I've stuck it right at the very beginning of the show. We're going to talk about that. We're going to go through the charts. Sorry, not the charts, the prices. We're going to go through some X files. We're going to look at the power law for Bitcoin. We're going to look at the super cycle, which CZ has been talking about. We're going to look at ADA. We're going to look at stagnant altcoins. Not ones in your pond, no. We're going to look at real-world asset demand. We're going to look at Dogecoin ETF. Is it just all hot air? And then we're going to finish with a scam warning. As we like to do from time to time, that is what we're going to try and do today. And we have a poll question. Are we going to go to $80,000 or $100,000 next? Which of those do you think is going to be the move? Now, we used to have a poll on Binance Square, or Binance Live, sorry, and they've got rid of it all. So I think what we need to do is start asking for some of this stuff back. So we've asked it in the other place, and there's only been a few people voting, and it's currently 50-50 between 80 and 100,000. So let's see, shall we? Now, we're not going to dilly-dally. We don't have a quiz planned for Wednesday night. We have one planned for next Wednesday night. So a week on Wednesday, we'll be doing the Wolfies quiz, where we talk about Wolfies, we talk about NFTs, that kind of good stuff. We've got nothing planned for this Wednesday. So we are going to start working. We're going to put the Oracle back in the skunk works, and we're going to start working on something to actually expand the quiz, maybe onto a different platform, as well as, obviously, the platforms that we're on, but maybe into a different platform as well. Anyway, let's have a look at some prices. I still haven't finished with the painters and decorators. You'll see the UI is missing the left-hand side. I haven't decided what I'm going to do with this, but I'm going to do a new thumbnail. I'm going to get the January new me, new you type of thing off the ground. So I'm going to do a new thumbnail at some point. So you'll have to put up with this for now. Charts then. $90,500 for Bitcoin. We did go above $91,000 last night. We're going to talk about that in a second. Ethereum is still at $3,100. XRP is still over $2. BNB is right on the cusp of $900. Are we going to see another $1,000 BNB this year? I think so. I think we could finish the year above $1,000 on BNB. I'm not going to say that about every coin, but I certainly think BNB is not bad. And if you look at XRP and BNB, if you look at the market caps, there is $70 million between them, which is not a lot. Now, I also saw an article about how to value coins. And there's a lot of people saying, oh, you shouldn't use market cap because you've got fully diluted valuation, you've got released coins, you've got all of that kind of good stuff, okay? I don't care. I don't care about that. It is putting your finger in the air and determining which way the wind is blowing. But it's a constant, and it's a constant that we use to kind of give you valuations. If you look on the right-hand side, you will see a circulating supply. So you will see that Bitcoin is almost at 20 million out of 21 million. But then if you go down to XRP, you will see there's only 60 out of 100 billion in circulation. So we know it's not the perfect, ideal indicator, but it still works for what we want it to work for. So I think trying to reinvent the wheel is just going to lead to people ignoring it anyway. I think it's still a good valuation of projects. Solana is not doing too badly. I don't think it's doing too badly. Tron is still somehow there. I don't know why. Doge is somehow still there. Cardano is still hanging on. I think it's going to get flipped by Bitcoin Cash, much as I don't want to see that. Monero is up 17.75% in the last 24 hours. It's at $575. I did say this was going back below $300. I still don't trust privacy coins. Not that I don't trust them as projects. I don't trust them. I don't trust the market valuation of them. I had the same conversation about Toncoin a year and a bit ago, maybe even 2 years ago. And that was 8th, I think it got to, before it retraced all the way back into the pack. I don't trust it. Now, maybe it's tied to what's going on in Europe. Maybe it's tied to something else. I don't know. But I don't trust privacy coins, and I don't trust this pump. Chainlink is still there. Gainers and losers then over the last 24 hours. I imagine that Monero is going to be up there. It certainly is. Story is up there. MYX is so volatile. I mean, I'm not saying you should trade MYX Finance, but it's either in the top 10 gainers or top 10 losers at least 2 or 3 times a week. So if you're looking for a coin that goes up, comes down, goes up, comes down, that's probably a good shout. We had the same thing many moons ago with Celestia. That traded between $20 and $12 for about a year and a half. Have a look at it. I know nothing about the project. I don't hold any of it. I certainly won't hold any of it. Aerodrome at 57 cents is not a bad price. Render, the AI coins are starting to pick up, but they're still nowhere near where they should be. Zcash is coming in just under $400. It was Zcash I said would go back below for $300, by the way. And Solana is in the top 10 gainers, so a lot of decent price action there. Now, I am trying to rush a little bit so we can get through the Powell stuff as well, so I'm trying to get through this a little bit quicker than normal. Lighter is down. Polygon is down, but Polygon is up 31% over the last week. Virtuals is down. Quant, Litecoin is at $78. Celestia at 53 cents. Do you remember I was saying a minute ago? We used to trade it between $12 and $20. It's at 53 cents. When a coin goes down 90%, it can go down another 90%. There is no reason Celestia can't go to 5 or 10 cents. There are coins that won't keep going down, like Bitcoin, but the majority of these types of coins are just zombie coins now. So that's pretty much for the markets. This is what I want to get into. I can't probably play this video, audio, because I'll be done for copyright. So I can't play you all of this. But this was extraordinary. Beyond belief. This came out at 1:30 this morning. I was, of course, fast asleep, away in the land of Nod. And this man here, who I may add, is looking very old. This is Jerome Powell talking about the court case that's been brought against him. And the court case has been brought against him because he has been... It's down here a little bit. Here we go. It's a potential perjury claim put forward by Anna Paulina Luna, who said that he made false statements to Congress and senior officials. This is all to do with the rebuilding of the Federal Reserve banqueting halls. That's kind of nonsense. They're just trying to get rid of him, okay? They're just trying to get rid of him. And very, very simply put, Donald Trump has a mandate from the American people. And Donald Trump's mandate is to do whatever he said in his manifesto, bring the price of energy down, therefore bringing the price of goods down, all of these kind of things. And since June last year, he's been trying to get rid of Powell because Powell won't cut rates. And you have, in a democracy, you have a division of power. And what that means is that if you're, say, the Bank of England, you make rate cut decisions independent of the government in England. If you are, I don't know, trying to think of another example now. The Treasury is making decisions on something else other than interest rates, maybe the circulating supply of the pound or the dollar, whatever it might be. They should be able to make that without any political pressure. And what's happening here is that Donald Trump wants to get rid of Jerome Powell. He said it himself. He wants him sacking. He can't sack him. Jerome Powell can't leave till May. This is going to force Jerome Powell to step down in January, which we did talk about a couple of weeks ago. And not only will it force him to step down, but one of the two Kevins will be put in. And those Kevins will slash interest rates. Is that good for your bags of crypto? Probably yes. It will devalue the dollar. So you'll see the pound, you'll see the yen, you'll see the euro. They'll all go up against the dollar. We might go from, I don't know, $1.30 to $1.40, whatever it might be. And this is not good long term for America. But we're not here to talk about the long term America. We're here to talk about the state of your bags. And I think this could lead to a very rosy 2026 by the end of the year, I think. But maybe not right now. But I think Powell's going to have to step down. And I think that's what Trump wants. I think if Powell steps down, all of this will go away. Because that's the type of person that Trump is. And whether you love him, whether you hate him, he is what it says on the tin. And I don't mean orange. I mean, he is what he is. He is blatant. He is a bully. And he will take his pound of flesh. And you knew that before he came into power. But there was no alternative. There was no alternative. The same way we have Keir Starmer in charge in the UK. He believes he has this massive mandate. He doesn't. There was just nobody else to vote for. Trump didn't have anybody else up against him, so everyone was going to vote for Trump because he said what people wanted to hear. Now, if that wasn't enough, this is going to be a massive week. Tuesday, CPI, core CPI, home sales. All of the different Fed chairs are talking on Monday and Tuesday. Wednesday, we have PPI. So we've got CPI and PPI. These are all inflation numbers. More people talking. Thursday, jobless claims. This is a big week for crypto. And the thing to understand about this, that there are big weeks and there are bigger weeks. And this is a massive week. Inflation data and jobless claims are two huge indicators of where the market is going. Jerome Powell, I think the rate cut that was due, or we thought was going to be due, I think the markets are pricing that in at about 3%, and that's going to happen now. So we're not going to get a rate cut. We know we're not going to get a rate cut, but we might get rid of Powell. And again, this will shake the markets because the markets don't like uncertainty. They don't like the fact that this is going to go on. They either want Powell to step down and somebody else to come in, and that's certainty, or they want the case dropping and Powell stays until May. That's also certainty. But you're in a situation where we have no certainty. And this is, the division of power in America is gone for now. There is no division of power. There's no Congress, Senate. There's clearly no Fed chairman that can stand up against Trump. So if you ever wanted to know what a modern day dictator looked like, I think right about now we've kind of got that, because he is simply doing everything that he wants to do, and there is nobody to stand in his way. Jerome Powell, I've said many times, is probably the only person that could stand up to him, and he is about to get the book thrown at him. There's nothing we can do. Nothing we can do. Trump won by a landslide. He's got two and a half. No, he's not. How long has he got left? He came in a year ago, so he's got 3 years left. He's got 3 years left. Incredible. X announced it will launch in timeline crypto and stock price tracking. Users will be able to tap tickers to see live prices and related posts without leaving the app. Now, there's a lot of stories going around about this, that it's going to be integrated with Solana, that's going to be integrated with X, whatever it might be. We don't know the actual facts about this. There's a lot of crypto Twitter kicking off at the minute because they think their reach has been caught. Somebody that worked at X came out and said it's because all you ever do is type slop. You talk about pump and dumps, all this kind of stuff. There's a lot of that been going on over the weekend, and this is the only actual piece of real news that we have about it. And this is okay for crypto. It's okay for crypto. But if you see this kind of stuff popping up on X, you know where it's from. And if you're on Binance Square, you've been able to see this for a year. It's been on Binance Square for a while, so you know where to go. The Senate votes on January the 15th on the Clarity Act, a crypto rulebook aiming at killing fake volume, wash trades, and shady reserves. Again, the Genius Act and the Clarity Act, these are the two big acts that are going to try and get passed this year. People are talking about it not being passed on January the 15th, being delayed. You've got Baldy guy from the Blue and White crypto exchange talking about the fact that they're trying to, at the last minute, change the Genius Act to basically stifle stable coins. Whatever comes out the other end will not be perfect. And that's not the point. We don't care about it being perfect. We want clarity. Thus, the name of the act. We want regulation. We want a rule book to play by. That's what matters to me. If we have to tweak it, we tweak it. But let's bring in the acts first and then worry about the minor adjustments later, instead of trying to hold everything to a higher moral standard. Let's bring in what everybody wants, and then we can talk about it. Because the longer this goes on, the more uncertainty there is, the less time people have, treasuries that is, to get into crypto. And we want crypto to go up in the next year, certainly. Now then, this is a running theme that I don't know whether I covered this originally. So at the I think just after the summer last year, there was a 4chan guy who predicted the top of this cycle that just went by. You've got to be very careful with stuff like this because, you know, Richard Hart predicted the day that Bitcoin topped out in 2021, and he lived off that for 4 years. Probably still living off it now. And this guy was right back in whenever it came out, a few years ago, but it only came out onto Twitter in August or September. Anyway, he's come out with another prediction. These are the new all-time highs for 2026. There's his original post. This is the guy that apparently posted these tops. I don't believe a single word that came out of, or I don't believe a single word that comes out of anybody that puts these kind of predictions. And the reason is that they are ridiculous. This is 30x the price of Link. So Link is going to go up 30 times. XRP is going to do a 6x. BNB is going to go up, what's that, 30%? Something like that. ADA is going to go up 25x. DOT is not going to go anywhere near these. I mean, some of these predictions in here are utterly ridiculous. I don't believe anything that's in here. So, Bitcoin, 190,000, ETH, 15,000, Sol, $1,000. Not opinions, outputs. Happy New Year. Targets adjusted, thesis intact. QE is back under a new labelled liquidity. Is returning. The printer goes Bert. This is a rotation market. Large caps rotating to meme coins. Anyway, I'm sharing this with you because I shared it with you in August last year. Take all of this stuff with a pinch of salt. I don't think we're going to go to 190,000. Lots of people are saying we're going to go to $260,000 this year. Again, I don't know how we get there. I'd like them to explain how we get there. I think we finished the year higher than we started the year. And I've said that for the first week of January. I think we finish between 90 and 100,000 for Bitcoin. Maybe 95, 96, 97,000. I think Ethereum finishes the year above $3,000. I think Solana probably finishes the year above $200. So, yes, I think we'll finish the year higher because the midterms are in October. So we have a few months after that. I think we finish higher, but I certainly can't see any of these prices. Not in the slightest. Anyway, so we have a couple of bits and pieces now about the cycle. Good morning, Kishan. I hope you're well. Good morning, Danny. I hope you are well. Very, very quiet on the Western Front today. Bitcoin bear market still in play as Powerlaw sees $65,000 do or die price. I don't believe this in the slightest. Bitcoin Powerlaw analysis concluded that price may face a new battle around $65,000 if Bitcoin spends 2026 as a year of consolidation. The 4-year cycle, price, and bear markets remain relevant. The latest Powerlaw analysis says 2026 may see a Bitcoin price support showdown with 65,000 as the key level. History demands price catching up to Powerlaw targets. So Jurian Timmer, director at Fidelity Investments, flagged 65,000 as the next key Bitcoin price battleground. Talks about that being the fair value That's still far away, but if Bitcoin consolidates for the next year, that trend line could get closer to 65 and could become a do or die line in the sand for Bitcoin. By the way, if you are just joining me, I have somewhat of a headache today, so I'm a little bit worse for wear. So if I'm stumbling a little bit, forgive me today. Now, Bitcoin is a scarce fixed asset inside the financial system, not a standalone S-curve like the internet. I also don't agree with a couple of these statements, which we'll go through in a second. Bitcoin RSI hits 105,000 is a different article we're not going to go through. Bitcoin has never ended a post-halving year lower than when it began, and reactions include dropping the cycle theory altogether. He predicts that compressed power law readings demand an upward relief rally. Bitcoin isn't stalling, it's coiling below its long-term growth law, and history says resolution comes by price catching up. Now, I am going to bring up the Bitcoin chart, which I've tried to do. I tried to get this ready last night, but TradingView is not great when it comes to views. And the Oracle has his purple and white view, and I have this view. And this didn't work last night. It kept showing me the Oracle's views. So, I'm not going to go back over this an awful lot. In 2021, we had euphoria, which meant we had peak capitulation. What does that look like? It looks like a $69,000 Bitcoin falling all the way down to 17,000. That was peak euphoria, peak capitulation. We did not have peak euphoria, therefore we will not have peak capitulation. I've been saying this for a while. I've drawn on here what I think Bitcoin is going to do. I think Bitcoin is going to touch the bull market support band. And by the way, it looks an awful lot like the bull market support band is going to touch the price rather than this kind of wick up. I think we're just going to steadily meet it at $94,000 or something around that price. And then we're going to have a retracement. The people telling you that we are going to go to $65,000, $60,000, $50,000, I don't see that scenario, because if you want a BMX for Christmas and you get a lump of coal and you're dead excited about your BMX and you put all your hopes on a BMX and you get a lump of coal, your expectations were that we were going to be a lot higher up here, and therefore your realization becomes more depressive than if you weren't going to get to that level. So we had no peak euphoria, we didn't get retail coming back, and therefore we are not going to see this area down here. I'm not going to hang my hat on that, but I just don't see it. I don't see a scenario where we're going to $65,000. $80,000. What was that level we wicked to there? Where did we come down to? There we go. $81,000. I think that's a bloody good bottom, if you pardon my French. I think 80,000, 81,000 is a bloody good bottom. And I think we will probably go back there, and we might go a little bit lower. But I think for now, I think we're solid. And I think what we need to do is we need to see what happens here. Because if I'm wrong, which is so likely, and all of these so-called experts are right, then we're going to be up here. We're going to do this. If the experts are right. And if I'm right, we don't go through here and we come down a bit. But the coming down a bit is, I think, where some of these previous models that have worked are just not going to work anymore. And I think the people that are calling for us to go down here are just being... Maybe it's the type of society we're in now, where David Beckham says he likes ham and cheese sandwiches, and the headline is, oh my God, David Beckham hates tuna. Maybe that's the society we're in. Maybe these people don't really believe we're going to go to $50,000, but maybe the headlines have to say $50,000. The same way the headlines have to say $250,000. Maybe in the heart of hearts they don't believe that. But that doesn't help you when you're watching and reading and listening and digesting and consuming all of that content from Willy Woo and Rich Dad Poor Dad and all these people that are telling you that we're going to go to $1 million. Now, do I think CZ thinks we're going to go to $1 million? I don't think he does. Do I think CZ says it because he's got the headline grabbing title for the article? Absolutely. Absolutely. Because one thing that they can do is they can very clearly say, oh, well, I think it's going to go to $1 million. And then between now and when they say it's going to go to $1 million, so many things can happen that when somebody says to them, you said we're going to go to $1 million. Yeah, that I did say that, but that's before X, Y, and Z happened. And then when X, Y, and Z happened, it just stopped us from happening. I mean, a little bit like why we didn't go to $150,000 in this cycle, because we didn't get the rate cuts. We didn't get the money printer being turned on. We didn't get all of these things that we wanted. And they are only one little element. Of course they are. The tariffs came in. We didn't see the tariffs coming. So there's always going to be reasons why we don't go where we think we're going to go to. But we try to be a little bit more realistic. So I think 80,000, 75,000 for the bottom of this bull run, I think that is more than adequate. Bitcoin's got a larger market cap now. It's harder to move. And then I think if we do come down here, and like I said, I think we finish 2026 higher than when we started it. We might finish it $1 higher than when we started it, but I think we're going to have a green year in total. So, don't be depressed. Don't be sad, because if we've gone to 80,000, we've come down 30% and change. The bears can argue that they won because we went to 80,000. The bulls can argue this. The super cycle is incoming, says CZ. Sparks bullish buzz across crypto markets. Now, I haven't seen the price of Bitcoin move based on this news, so clearly whoever wrote this hasn't been looking at the charts. CZ has been saying this for a while as well. There's a potential super cycle as the pressure eases, institutions accumulate, Bitcoin and macro trends support renewed long-term optimism. Binance founder CZ reignited bullish sentiment after declaring the super cycle incoming across crypto markets. The comment followed the regulatory easing signals in the US. CZ highlights institutional Bitcoin accumulation and regulatory shift. I could be wrong, but super cycle is incoming. Now, remember the chart I just showed you? And we went to $80,000. And maybe that was the bottom. Maybe that was the bottom of this cycle. Maybe we don't go below $80,000. And maybe that will then give the super cycle theorists the ammunition to say we're in a super cycle because we only came down to 80,000. But we came to 80,000 from 126,000. That's a pretty severe drop when your market cap is so high. That's what the super cycle people could say. The bears could say we've managed to pull Bitcoin back to 80,000. So I think this is one of those situations where I think both people can argue that they've won this battle. This was a draw, really, but I think they could both argue that this is the battle. I don't see $60,000 Bitcoin. I don't see $50,000 Bitcoin. I don't know how we get there. I just don't. And I was saying the same thing when we were talking about $200,000. I don't see how we got there, and we didn't. I don't see how we go too much lower than where we've gone to. Maybe we wick. I think if you look back to the tariff day, Liberation Day, we went to 74,000. We wicked to 74,000, which isn't a million miles away from the previous all-time high. 74,000, that was a solid drop. 80,000, 80,500, that was a solid drop. Maybe we recover. Maybe we do go back to 100,000, and then maybe we come back to 85 and put in a higher low. Maybe we do all of those things. Maybe we do none of those things. These are just my musings. But CZ says we've got a super cycle. He's got far more insider knowledge than I have, I think. He cited evolving investor behavior. He claimed that during the panic selling by retail traders, the banks in the US were hoarding Bitcoin. He mentioned institutions such as Wells Fargo increasing their exposure. As a result, institutional activity seems to offset the volatility at the retail level. I don't think we have retail back. I don't think they ever came back. I think I've said this before. I don't think we've got retail. Now, another example is social metrics. And I've said this before as well. Into the Cryptoverse, which is Ben Cowan's channel, he has a page which shows you the social interest on Google and on YouTube. We are seeing 80 to 90% less interest in crypto on YouTube than we had in 2021. And it never peaked. It never peaked in 2025. So retail have gone and they never came back. So institutional activity, it's like the Star Wars R2-D2. You are our only hope. That's all that's left. Now, institutions, of course, get their money from you and I. The ETFs get their money from you and I. So it's not as if these men in suits, in black suits, that sit in shadowy rooms and buy all the Bitcoin. It's buying the Bitcoin on behalf of you, whether it be a pension fund, whether it be you buying the ETFs, whatever it might be. So retail has gone in terms of direct exposure, in my opinion, and in the opinion of many people. They have never came back. CZ is arguing that we now have a more mature market. We have the ETFs, we have institutions, we've got the Clarity Act, the Genius Act, all that kind of stuff. And that is a very solid argument. And I do think that there is an argument to be made that we don't see lower prices this year. But there's also an argument to be made that we don't see higher prices until Powell has gone and we've had the midterms, which is October. So November and December and maybe October, I think we should have some good months. But between now and then, we've got uncertainty and I would say consolidation. And do you remember what happened in 2024? Was it 2024? We spent 7 months in the kind of the same range, the accumulation range. It's boring. That could be where we're heading this year. I just don't see. Also, go back to 2022, 4 years ago. Do you remember what happened? Luna blew up. FTX collapsed. I think Celsius went around that time as well. Companies were blowing up left, right and centre. We've not so far seen any of that. And I don't know whether we will. We'll see maybe some small companies. We might see some small blockchains going to the wall. We'll see some gaming companies go. The metaverse projects will probably go as well. But I don't see another Luna. I don't see another FTX. And if you remember, that happened after the euphoria. And that dragged Solana down to $12, $8. We haven't got that anymore. We don't have that. So we haven't got that negative sentiment to follow the euphoric sentiment. So that's why I think we're just going to be boring for a year. But remember, boring makes you rich. Now then, ADA trades sideways as long-term holders sell and speculators step in. Here is the setup. I don't know about this. Then the experts get liquidated. Good morning, MH. I hope you are well. Hello. 86 to 95,000 Bitcoin will be my guess. If we are serious, maybe 80,000. We've already gone to 80,000. And if you remember, when we wicked to 74,000 and everybody was telling you that it's the end of days, I was saying, no, it's not the end of days. It's panic. And I don't see us coming much lower than that. Thank you for the super chat, Kishan. We may roll on this for a couple of weeks. Yeah, anytime when crypto market gets a huge inflow. Exactly. I think we can get a huge inflow. But that comes from adoption, and adoption is not a light switch. You know, I talked about the Solana ETF, the XRP ETFs. they're seeing inflows, and those inflows are slowing down. But I don't care if they're slowing down, they're still going. We did see a few red days for XRP. I don't care about a few red days. We see red days on Bitcoin all the time. Solana ETFs is doing incredibly well as well. So I don't see the same setup. And if the setup is different, the outcome has to be different. ADA is holding a bullish wedge. Key levels are 43 cents and 35 cents. Cardano is drifting back into the spotlight. I think the biggest mistake, before we get into this article, the biggest mistake I have seen is Charles Hoskinson stepping away from X. That is a terrible mistake, and maybe they live to regret it. Charles is the face of Cardano, the same way Vitalik is the face of Ethereum. They are the faces of their chains. And I will argue with anybody that your chain needs a face. The only chain that doesn't need a face is Bitcoin, and that has the mythical Satoshi Nakamoto, who doesn't need to say anything because it's pure. Ethereum, XRP, Solana, BNB to some degree, Cardano, they've all got faces. They've all got a personality pushing them forward. You know, I suppose for Bitcoin you could argue Michael Saylor, you could argue Tom Lee does that for Ethereum as well, but they're not involved in the chain. They are outside. It's the speculative outsiders. I think Charles stepping away from X is the wrong move. I don't care what kind of hate he gets on X. I don't care what he calls it. It's a massive way of distributing information about Cardano. That's how I see it. The balance isn't random. Cardano is technically still sitting inside a bullish structure and buying pressure hasn't vanished, but the makeup of that demand has changed, and that shift is quietly becoming the biggest risk factor. If OGs are selling, and they've been holding for 3, 4, 5, 6 years, and new people are buying, there is nothing to suggest those new people are going to hold Cardano. They might be getting in at 35, 40 cents because they think it's going to go to $1, and then they'll sell it $1 again. And what might happen is, like we saw with Bitcoin and the OGs there, every time we got back towards $100,000 or $105,000, they sold the backside out of it. Maybe the same thing is going to happen with ADA. Maybe ADA is going to get that $1 resistance again, which he's always had. Always had. And maybe we just go back there and we rattle around. But as I said a few weeks ago, I think Cardano will sit between 30 and 60 cents for the rest of the year. Same way Bitcoin, I think, will sit between 80, 85 and maybe 95 or $100,000 maybe for the rest of the year, unless something happens, of course. So the on-chain data reveals a growing split between long-term conviction holders and shorter-term participants. Longer-term holders appear to be distributing. They are selling. Activity from this group jumped from 1.92 million ADA to 4.5 million ADA in a single day, a surge of 135%. That kind of move suggests older holders may be exiting positions instead of waiting out the volatility. I would argue that we need to see where ADA is once the ETF is live and once Midnight is starting to roll out what it's starting to roll out. But there comes a point with every coin where you take your profits, and I think I've said this back in October or September. I was going to sell everything but Bitcoin, and I'm still of that opinion. If we do have a different cycle, and this cycle is what all of the experts are predicting, and we do go back towards $150,000, $200,000, and ADA goes above $1 again, goes to $1.50, whatever it might be, I'm probably going to sell out of ADA. The same way, if XRP goes $4 and north, I'll probably get out of XRP. The only thing I'm holding is Bitcoin, and that's the only true asset. Everything else should outperform Bitcoin, because if it doesn't, what's the point of holding it? If Bitcoin has outperformed your alts for the last 2 or 3 years, why didn't you just buy Bitcoin to start with? That would be the question to ask. Now, ADA went from 20 cents to whatever, $1 and whatever. So it did outperform Bitcoin from where I bought it to where I could have sold it near the top. It did. XRP did outperform Bitcoin. But there's a lot of coins that haven't. Look at BNB. BNB's been on a massive run, but it went from maybe $200 to $1,000. Did a 5x, which is great, but Bitcoin did a 7x. So even BNB didn't outperform the king. Okay, it's loading. Why are altcoins so stagnant? Experienced analyst shares 3 reasons and a way out. We always love a way out, don't we? We see it on X. People saying, I just want Ethereum to go back to $4,000 so I can get my money back and I'm never touching crypto again, blah, 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 blah. You see it all the time. And it does make me chuckle. It does. But I'm not laughing at their situation. I'm laughing at the comment, because it's like somebody who goes into the horses and the horse just keeps losing. And he says, this time I just want to win this one horse and I'll walk away. And you know he'll bet on that horse. You know he'll win. And you know the following day he'll be back in the bookies betting on horses again. You just know these things happen. In a latest session, technical TA experts, Gareth Soloway, he was shorting Bitcoin from 40,000, if you remember, 30,000. Scott Melker, the Wolf of Wall Street, quite like him, discussed market dynamics and shared striking predictions about the future of Bitcoin and altcoins. Scott Melker noted that Bitcoin has turned the 50-day moving average into support on daily charts, highlighting the possibility of a short-term relief rally, which we've been talking about. If this holds, we could see Bitcoin move back towards 94 to 95 or even 100,000. Now, my target is 100,000. But that's declining every week because it's the bottom of the bull market support band. It's probably about 99,000 today. That's my target. I think we wick to it, and that's what causes the mini capitulation to the downside. But 94 to 95,000 would also probably fulfill that. I just want to see the wick to it. That's what I want to see. I don't want to see candles closing in it or anything like that. I just want to see a wick to it. The same way we wick to 81,000. That kind of thing. Because when some of these targets are given, what people don't understand is the length of time it spends at those numbers. What he means here is, or what I believe he means here is, we could see Bitcoin move back towards 94 to 95,000 or even 100,000 in an optimistic scenario. I don't believe for 1 minute he thinks we're going to move back there and stay there. I think we're going to move back there and then a decision will be made, and more than likely that will come back to the downside. So maybe we stay there for a day or two. Maybe we get to 99.2, 98.8, something like that, and then we hold around there for a few days and then we come down. That's what I think he's talking about here. However, there is resistance at 100,000. 100,000, remember, is a significant number. 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 are significant numbers. I've said this many times to you before. Why do things get sold for $99, $9.99, $19.99? Because it's significantly important in your brain, which is why I don't think we go to exactly $100,000. We might go a little bit above it. We might go to 99.8. But the reason is because sell pressure and buy pressure happens around the number. It doesn't happen on the number. So I don't also believe we're going to pull back to 60,000. Now then, Melker attributed the stagnation in altcoins to 3 reasons. So these are the 3 reasons they've given. Money entering Bitcoin comes through ETFs, prevents the capital from flowing into altcoins. We've said this before. Investors who previously speculated on altcoins are now turning to platforms that make predictions about events such as election results or weather conditions. The gamblers, the degens, have moved on to predictions markets. I would totally agree with that. The current prices of altcoins are based more on speculation than their primary use cases, and it may take longer for them to reach their true value. In a positive way, I agree with this. If I was to rewrite the top coins, in fact, you know what? I've got that list. KB is clearly not a fan. Now, I made a list of coins that I published on Binance Square a few days ago. I put it up on here. I'm not going to bring up Binance Square to find it. I'll find it on here. Here. Okay. So I made a list. And this is a list of coins that I genuinely think, if I was starting today, this is what I would buy. And I can defend the hill of every coin on this list. And the reason I can defend it is, with regards to this article, I look at the primary use cases of these coins. And if you've noticed, there's only one S-tier coin, and that's Bitcoin. And then you've got A-tier, Diamonds tier. You've got Link, the glue of the internet, Ethereum, Solana, Syrup, Ondo, and World Liberty Financial. World Liberty Financial is there because Donald Trump is going to make it be there. Let's not cut any bones about that. Syrup and Ondo are there because they're my two favourite real-world asset projects. And I know how they work, and I know how they'll make money in the future. Link, ETH, and Sol are there for obvious reasons, because ETH and Sol are the two blockchains. Link is the glue. B tier, these are coins where you can clearly see where the value of that project comes from. Hype and Aster clearly generate millions and millions in revenue. XRP is clearly going to be embedded in the banking system. It's a bit like Marmite, I understand XRP. BNB is there because it's got the best burn mechanism in the world. It's got the best burn mechanism any blockchain has ever seen. Dupe is there because it makes bags of cash. And ADA is there as an afterthought. But ADA, I've not given up on yet. And then we can go down to C tier. These are disappointing coins, which is Polygon and Kronos Chain. D tier is Atom. It should work really, really well, but it's fragmented itself beyond belief. And then the F tier, these are coins I would just love to see go in the trash can. And that's DOT, because it's too complicated and I don't like Gavin Wood. Doge, I see no point in Doge. Even they are admitting that if X integrates Solana, Doge's days are over. And then Bitcoin Cash, it was a fork. That's it. So I would say S, A, and B would give you 3, 6, 13 tokens that I would stand on a hill and defend each of those chains. The weakest link on that screen there for me is ADA in terms of defending them. Why do I keep calling it Polana? Maybe they should rename themselves Polana and just basically do what Solana do. Polygon and Crow are massively disappointing. But for different reasons, each one is changing direction. Crow's got a new CEO, not the coin itself, but the chain has got a new CEO. And Polygon, Sandeep is working on basically, I think, making Polygon into a standalone chain. And the issue that Polygon have got is that if Polymarket leaves Polygon, it's finished. There's nothing else there. So I would fight anybody on that hill and defend that list. And I've seen other people put this list up. And there are coins on here, for example, that I've liked for 3 or 4 years. There's coins on here that I've waited a very long time to like. Hype being one of them. I completely ignored that coin for a very long time because sometimes you can't just jump on the bandwagon because the bandwagon is there. Sometimes you have to wait and see how it works. That's the issue that Hype had, and it passed for me, flying colours. Aster, we know who's behind Aster, or we know who the team are behind Aster, so let's not worry about that one. And everything else I'm going to defend. So I am in agreement with that one. And then the next one is the 2026 midterm elections are of great importance. Bitcoin is now a legitimate asset and less likely to be affected by political changes. They've highlighted that regulatory risks for the altcoin market. Melker warned that if critical legislation like the Clarity Act fails to pass, which it will pass, and anti-crypto figures gain power in Congress, the district enter another period of uncertainty. Absolute nonsense. None of this is going to happen. Trump's got 3 years. Trump has 3 years. But I don't see where his get out is. Where is this bit in the article? Where is the get out in here? I don't see a get out. Is the get out silver and precious metals? I don't see a get out. I don't think the get out's been missed out of the article. Listen, I don't particularly like Gareth Soloway. I think he talks with too much confidence about his chosen topic. He's a very wealthy man. That is irrelevant. There's a lot of very rich, wealthy people that don't really know what they're talking about out there, so that doesn't really come into it. I think the problem is he talks like his word is gospel, and he will get a lot of people wrecked in certain instances. I'm sure he'll make a lot of people a lot of money as well, but I just don't like the certainty with which he talks. Now then, tokenized real-world assets where demand is real and where it isn't. Real-world asset tokenization isn't waiting for adoption, it's waiting for demand. The winners are emerging where yield, efficiency and balance sheet logic already exist, not where narratives are the loudest. I do agree with this entirely. There's no point in tokenizing something if nobody wants to buy the tokens. So that's basically the long and short of it. If you tokenize Tesla stock, what does that do? It gives everybody all over the world the ability to buy Tesla stock. That's what it does. Will there be demand everywhere around the world to buy Tesla stock? Yes. So is it a good idea to tokenize Tesla stock? Yes, absolutely. Okay. You could be sitting there in Turkey watching me right now, and you can go to one of many places to buy Tesla stock. In fact, Binance and Ondo, I think, already have a deal in place where you can buy Tesla through Binance. You can go onto Remora, you can buy it on there. There's loads of places you can buy Tesla stock. So is there regulatory clarity in your country yet to say whether that's legal or not? Probably not. Do the Americans care? No. So there is a use case for why you should go and buy Tesla stock. Oh, not go and buy it, sorry. There's a use case there why people will go and buy Tesla stock. There are 100 different reasons why certain real-world asset projects are just jumping on the bandwagon. The same way as they put AI in their name, they put real-world assets in their name as well. So the trick here, and this is a very long article, by the way, the trick here is to understand and ask yourself a question. Warren Buffett says this all the time, or said it all the time when he was still in charge. Do you consume the product that you are investing in? Do you know what that product does? Do you have an eye on that product? Do you use it in your daily life? Let's give you an example. Let's say Netflix. Let's say you are an avid user of Netflix and you go and buy Netflix stock. And Netflix stock has gone from $100 to $700. You've made a 7x on Netflix. And then over maybe Christmas 2026, you notice that the quality of films, the number of films that are coming out is starting to diminish. You firsthand know that that is the time for you to sell your Netflix stock. That is exactly how it should be. If you are invested in Pizza Hut and you have a Pizza Hut pizza every week for your family and you notice there's a little bit less pepperami or peppers or onions on it or whatever it might be, or the special offers aren't so special, the pizzas are starting to shrink, and you've made a good return on your Pizza Hut, you sell your Pizza Hut stock. That's what that kind of investing is about. What you shouldn't do is go, what are the top 5 stocks? I'm going to go and buy them, because you don't know anything about them. And I think that applies to crypto and tokenization of real world assets in crypto as much as anything else. Because yes, you can go and buy Nike, you can go and buy Apple stocks, but just because you can doesn't mean you should. The next Apple iPhone that comes out could be dreadful. It could lose 20% of its market cap. Look at Nvidia. Nvidia has spiked, it spiked. Second or third biggest asset in the world, and it's likely to have a retracement. These things happen. Tokenization as financial plumbing, not market revolution. Tokenization does not create new assets. It changes how existing assets work. This is something that's really important to know when we start talking about the size of a market, when we start talking about the size of crypto at $3 trillion. If we bring another $3 trillion from traditional stocks into crypto, it doesn't make the crypto market worth $6 trillion. It's like taking the money out of your wallet and putting it in your bank account. It's still the same amount of money. It's technically not like that, but it doesn't matter. You get the idea. Tokenized stocks are still stocks. They're not going to perform any better because you've got a crypto version of them. Just be careful with stuff like this. So yield, if you look at Ondo offers a yield, incredible 4%, 4.5% on its tokens. So you look for a yield, you look for the likes of Maple Finance and what they do, where they unlock the collateral within the Bitcoin that's being held in these treasuries. Again, we're massive fans of Maple Finance. It works because there is a demand for it, and that demand is only going to get bigger. So real world assets for me, absolutely are a future. Now, the other side of that is the failures. Illiquid assets do not become liquid simply because they are fractionalized. Technically they do. If I take an oil painting worth $10 million and I make 10 million tokens for $1 each, and then I put them on the market and they go up to $1.20 and I sell them, that makes them liquid. It's an important failure point to acknowledge tokenization is not a universal solution. Projects that prioritize everything will be tokenized over demonstrating why tokenization improves it are unlikely to find sustained positive market reception. I totally agree with this as well. I think the long and short of this is two things. Number one, it opens the market to everybody to be able to buy tokenized stocks. So in terms of liberation of the markets, it's a big thumbs up. In terms of, let me pick on somebody in chat. Good morning, Tariq. I'm going to pick on Tariq. Tariq wakes up in the morning and he sees a delivery of 1,000 Teslas to his nearby garage, and he thinks people are buying a lot of Teslas. Tariq goes out and buys $100 worth of Tesla stock because he can, on his mobile phone, because he can. That's where it becomes frictionless, and that's the benefit. Where it fails is where Tariq is buying things that he's got no knowledge of, and that applies to the stock market as much as it applies to crypto. And as well as the money coming across from the stock market to crypto, the same principles have to come across as well. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Tesla might outperform Nvidia over the next 2 years. It might not. Nvidia might outperform Tesla. One might fall in value, or the other one might go up. So just be careful when you say you're going to go and buy tokenized stocks, that you do it understanding why you're doing it. Don't just buy it because Elon Musk owns the company. That's not really a good idea to go and buy anything, is it? Dogecoin ETF buzz wears off. Should Doge traders brace for 12 cents? I might just leave that on the screen. Doge should not get an ETF. It has no value. It has no value proposition. It's printing itself into infinity. It has no hard cap. It's proof of work. So it's actually burning electricity. Doesn't add any value. It was hanging its hat on being the tipping feature on X. That now no longer seems to be the case. Dogecoin is a waste of time. It doesn't mean you can't trade it, but as a long-term investment, why would I hold it? What benefit is there in holding Dogecoin? What value does it create? And there will be people out there that talk about mining and talk about nodes and talk about decentralization. What does it actually do? If I said, what does Chainlink do? You'd probably be able to describe it within about 5 minutes of looking it up on the internet. If I asked you what Dogecoin did, what are you going to say? Oh, it's the OG meme coin. That doesn't mean anything. If you look at the number of Doge in existence today and look back 4 years, you'll notice there's a lot more Doge today than there is back then. So it's printing itself into infinity. If you want to see what fiat looks like, look at Doge. Anyway, we don't have a lot of time left, so I'm going to go on to a warning, which we've not done one of these in a while. I don't know if anybody saw as well, there was a list of attacks in Paris and France. I think 28% of all crypto-related kidnappings and theft, 28% happened in France. So of all the world, of all the crime to do with crypto people being kidnapped and all these kind of things, 28% of all of that crime happened in France. Incredible. And I think they arrested somebody, didn't they? Didn't they arrest a tax advisor that was giving out information on who had what? Something like that. Anyway, where are we up to? Crypto scammers swindle elderly couple out of $1.3 million of retirement. So they swindled the money. The couple said the criminals claimed to be from the FTC and said they were carrying out an investigation. The criminals threatened and coerced the victims into transferring funds using Bitcoin and gold. The couple, Barbara and Larry Cook, they certainly have been cooked, were approached by crypto scammers who claimed they were security representatives from Amazon and TD Bank. The scammers were able to convince the couple that their identity had been misused. The Cooks were drawn into a web of deceit by the scammers who stole $1.3 million, meant for their retirement, charity and family, according to their will. Started asking them to pay stashes of $50 and $100 bills into Bitcoin ATMs and hand over gold bullion in their home state of Maine and in Florida, where they lived in a condo for winter. It went on for 6 months before the Cooks realised they'd been duped. According to reports, the crypto scammer gained their trust by highlighting they were doing their civic duty by assisting the FTC, which was following the money to catch criminals. My wife and I have always liked to help people, said Larry, now 82, a former pastor in Pennsylvania and founding pastor of the Africa-based non-profit Kenya's Kids, said. We thought we were helping the US government. We're not going to read any more of that. All I will say is this, and I've made videos about this as well. Under no circumstances should you tell anybody that you hold cryptocurrency. Now, if you are been buying Bitcoin for the last 7, 8, 9 years, and you've got that Bitcoin, and nobody knows about your Bitcoin, and you get a phone call out of the blue, then one of the exchanges, platforms that you've bought the Bitcoin through has been compromised. If nobody knows you've bought it, then you don't have to worry about people finding you and you thinking, well, did my Aunt Mavis tell anybody? Or did Dave, the greengrocer down the street, did he tell anybody? So don't tell anybody you've got crypto. Nobody, right? Don't tell your friends. Don't tell your work colleagues. Don't tell anybody. Don't tell your neighbors that you hold cryptocurrency. And certainly don't tell them where you hold your cryptocurrency. Don't tell them it's on Binance, for example. And basically, what you should do is treat this how you would treat holding any other asset. If you've got gold bars in a safe in your house, you wouldn't tell anybody, and you wouldn't go to your neighbor and say, oh, I'm getting into that gold. I've got a load of gold bars in my house. You wouldn't do that, would you? No. You don't tell people you've got Bitcoin or any other crypto. And the other thing you should do is you should have 2 mobile phones. And one of those mobile phones, you should never leave the house and shouldn't have a SIM card in it. And that should probably have your crypto on it. It should have access to your crypto if you haven't got a hard wallet, cold storage wallet. If you bring your mobile phone out and you don't have your security code set up properly on it and somebody nicks your phone, they're very likely to be able to get into it and very likely to be able to find your account and try and withdraw it. So make sure 2-factor authentication, anti-phishing, make sure you've got your SMS turned on, all of those kind of things. Turn everything on, okay? Because it's not a problem until it is a problem, and then it becomes an irreversible problem. So much as it pains me to try and send any amount of money to anybody, I've got to put in 3 different codes, 4 different codes to do things sometimes, and it's a pain in the backside. But I know if it's a pain in the backside for me and I've got all of these tools around me, I know it's a pain in the backside if anybody got access to my SIM card or anything else like that. So be safe. 2FA on a separate phone, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I don't know. The Google thing, Google changed it so you could access your 2FA through your Google account. And that's great for convenience, but I don't think it's so good for protecting yourself. Anyway, I'm rambling on. It's now 12:04. Thank you, everybody, for coming to the show. I am back tomorrow. The Oracle is back tonight at 8 o'clock. I can't bring it up because I haven't set it up yet. But the Oracle is back tonight at 8 o'clock. I'm back tomorrow at 11 o'clock. I'm probably going to make a few videos this week. I was tired. I'm still tired and I've got a headache. And I've got to the end of the show, thankfully. So thank you, everybody, for coming. A day doesn't go by that I'm grateful that you show up. Let's put it that way. And whether it was me and Tariq in chat and just the two of us, or whether there's 20, 30, 40, 50 people watching, I don't really care. Anyway, thank you all for watching. See you all tomorrow. Take care.